I've already tried to film this video once and the neighbour whacked out the lawnmower, so we're off to a good start. Hi everyone, my name is Emma Collins and my YouTube channel is just my name, Emma Collins, not to be confused with the reality star that is Gemma Collins.
I'm claustrophobic, Darren!
I'm currently studying criminology at the University of Gloucestershire and I make videos about my experience at university, lifestyle stuff, travel stuff, a little bit of everything basically. So for today's video I thought I would talk about one of my favourite topics within criminology, which is green criminology. I'm currently writing an essay about green crime, so I should know what I'm talking about. Well, I hope I know what I'm talking about. And I find the topic really interesting, so I thought you might do too. So I'm going to run through the topics we are going to discuss today. First of all, I'm going to talk about what is criminology. Then I'm going to talk about what is green criminology, environmental crimes versus environmental harms, and lastly I'm going to talk about environmental racism. So first of all, what is criminology? Normally when people hear the word crime or criminology, they associate it with something they've seen on TV. You know, those classic American CSI programs where everyone's out to find the killer. Or people think it's the study of serial killers and psychopaths and think of characters like Villanelle from Killing Eve. And as much as I wish my whole degree was just dedicated to Jodie Comer, unfortunately that's not the case. Of course, serial killers and psychopaths are part of it, however, criminology is a lot more broad than that. Crime can actually be really complex as it's a social phenomenon. Is that how you say that word? Phenomenon. It's a social construct. An act is only defined as criminal if we label it as a crime. And that's why laws and legislation changes so much over time, because what we consider to be crime is constantly changing. But to put it simply, criminology is the study of making laws, breaking laws, and the way in which society reacts to that. So where does green criminology fit into that? Just wait for the kid to go past on his bike. Much like defining criminology, green criminology is also really difficult to define, as there's so many contrasting perspectives and opinions and no one can agree on one definition. However, I think the most easy to understand definition is this. Green criminology refers to the study of those harms against humanity, against the environment, and against non-human animals committed both by powerful institutions and also by ordinary people. Now, this can include a lot of things, from the regulation of pollution, to the illicit wildlife trade, to even corporate criminality and health and safety in the workplace. It's basically anything in terms of environmental crimes against humans, ecosystems and animals. Now this can be really confusing because some things that harm the environment and humans and animals aren't actually considered criminal. This is where environmental crimes and environmental harms come in. For someone to be guilty of committing an environmental crime, prosecutors must prove that the defendant knowingly, intentionally, or recklessly committed a wrongdoing. Basically, the defendant has to know that what they're doing is wrong. This is also known as the mens rea, the guilty mind. You can't technically commit a crime if you didn't know something was criminal, unless you committed that crime out of negligence. Europol have listed some environmental crimes on their website. These can include things such as improper collection, transport, recovery or disposal of waste, illegal operation of a plan in which a dangerous activity is carried out or in which dangerous substances or preparations are stored, the killing, destruction, possession or trade of protected wild animals or plant species, production, importation, exportation, marketing or use of ozone-depleting substances. And although traditional criminology is just concerned with what we define as criminal, green criminology isn't just interested in that. Green criminology is also interested in environmental harms. Now, an environmental harm is anything which damages the environment but isn't necessarily considered as criminal. So for example, a lot of pollution and deforestation, although harms the environment and harms plants and wildlife, isn't necessarily defined as criminal. The difference between the two is largely dependent on who's causing the damage and the context in which they are doing it. Now, let's say for example, I have tons of toxic waste and I'm going to go and dump that waste in a field just down the road from me. That would be defined as criminal. However, when governments want to dump toxic waste, that isn't always the case. In 1982, when the US government dumped soil laced with PCBs in Warren County, which is a predominantly black community in North Carolina, that was considered fine. Although concerns were raised over the PCBs linking into drinking water and there were lots of protests, the government went ahead with it anyway. The reason it's so difficult to define these harms as criminal is because a lot of the time they're committed by the government themselves. Another thing which is really important, which I've touched upon already, is to understand green criminology as a social issue. The IPCC spoke about how important it is to identify environmental harms as a social issue as they heighten already existing inequalities. Now, environmental racism is a huge issue, and it's actually what I'm currently writing my assignment on at the moment. Race continues to be a prominent factor with regards to the disproportionate exposure of environmental harms on different communities. Robert Bullard simplifies this perfectly. He explains that race predicts where people live, which communities get dumped on, and which communities are spared. There is an overwhelming number of case studies, largely in America, where minority communities are often used as sacrifice zones. This means that the government and big organisations are using minority communities as dumping grounds for their toxic waste. There is an amazing Netflix documentary which explains this way better than I ever could. In Nova Scotia, in Canada, where minority communities are continually exposed to pollutants and toxic waste. If you're going to take anything from this video today, it is to watch that documentary. It's called There's Something in the Water. It's done by Ellen Page, and it just explains this perfectly. So I hope you have enjoyed today's video on green criminology and have had a bit of an insight into what it's all about. If you did enjoy today's video, then please be sure to go and check out my channel. As I said, it's just my name, and I'll see you soon. Bye!